Remember to subscribe to our YouTube channel at NDN TV Nigeria. Click on the subscribe button and be the first to get notifications.
The attention of political leaders and interest groups in the Niger Delta has been drawn to certain provisions in the Petroleum Industry Bill (PIB) that are inimical to the development of oil-producing communities in the region. In separate interviews with correspondent Tekena Amiofori, some Port Harcourt-based lawyers raised concerns over the nonchalance of political leaders and interest groups in the enactment of a legislation that ordinarily affects the lives of largely backward communities in the Niger Delta, as well as the Nigerian economy.
The Petroleum Industry Bill (PIB) was first introduced in the National Assembly some 20 years ago to revive Nigeria's ailing petroleum industry. It was specifically crafted during the Obasanjo administration to make the industry more competitive and profitable for all stakeholders. To ensure an easier passage of the PIB, which had suffered a huge setback, the 8th Assembly had split the bill into 4 components, namely the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill, Petroleum Industry Administration Bill, Petroleum Industry Fiscal Bill, and the Petroleum Host and Impacted Communities Bill. So far, only the Petroleum Industry Governance Bill has been passed, leaving most observers worried about the fate of the PIB. After President Muhammadu Buhari transmitted a harmonized version of the bill to the National Assembly in October last year, the 9th Assembly has vowed to break the jinx in the passage of the proposed legislation.
There are people both within and outside the country who will work against it, but it's going to be the strength of our patriotism to pass it. That is going to be one heck of a legislation that not only Nigeria but the entire world is waiting, because that will change our economy. Money will start flowing.
Despite the federal lawmakers' determination to ensure timely passage of the PIB, some lawyers in the Niger Delta have identified certain provisions in the proposed legislation that must be quickly amended to protect the interests of oil-producing communities. Their grouse is with application of trust funds in the host communities development component of the PIB, which in Section 257, subsection 2 provides that where in any year an act of vandalism, sabotage or other civil unrest occurs that causes damage to petroleum and designated facilities or disrupts production activities within the host communities, the community forfeits its entitlement to the extent of the cost of repairs of the damage that resulted from the activity with respect to the provisions of this act within that financial year. The implication of this clause in the proposed legislation is more explicit in subsection 3, which further provides that the basis for computation of the trust fund in any year shall always exclude the cost of repairs of damaged facilities attributable to any act of vandalism, sabotage, or other civil unrest.
Why should the host community pay for vandalism? Is there a way of ascertaining that the vandalism is from the host community? So if actors and operators from some other region or some other place get into an area and vandalize in order to do what they are doing, the host community should pay for it. Why should it be the host community that should bear that loss? Is the host community completely responsible for securing the place? Are there contracts or design? There is nothing in the law that makes it their responsibility, so why should they pay? If it is not established that the activity is from the host community, why should the host community pay in the event of vandalism, sabotage, or any other civil unrest?
What this is doing is that the communities are guilty unless they can prove themselves innocent. So you are inverting those provisions of the law, because you are now saying that once something happens in the community, it is the responsibility of the community. They are guilty. So we are not going to, whatever we wanted to give to this community will be reduced by how much we spend in that. I expect that this is a bill that almost all our legislators should be able to come home and now engage the communities and say, these are the things they are proposing. What do you think? But I'm not getting that sort of a situation that is happening now. I also think that the governors themselves should be able to even come together, organize themselves, and look at some of these consequences and say, this is what we think we should do about this impending law, because clearly it will have effect on us.
Earlier, the upper and lower chambers of the National Assembly had called for oral and written submissions in an ongoing public hearing on the PIB. It is expected that industry players and other interested parties take advantage of the public hearing to make their own inputs into the proposed Petroleum Industry Act.
We as the Niger Delta people, this is the opportunity we have to attend massively that stakeholders meeting and make our presentation known.
Well, I think we should vigorously and robustly engage that process so that several groups should be able to engage that process. And mind you, there are people who will want to intervene in that process, but not all such people will be able to afford what it takes to have that engagement process. This is one piece of legislation which I think that committee needs to move from Abuja and sit in the Niger Delta to afford the communities of the Niger Delta to engage that process.
Lawyers who spoke on the fate of the PIB were disappointed that political leaders and representatives of the people have not demonstrated the courage to protect the interests of oil-producing communities in the enactment of what promises to be a revolutionary piece of legislation.
What has happened to our legislative caucuses? One is not quite hearing much from them. Is it that they are completely satisfied with the bill? How about engaging their people? Getting their people to understand what they understand that is making them quiet? And how about the communities themselves and various development agents and actors within the community? Not much seems to be happening. One is not hearing or seeing much engagement coming from within the affected area. This is the core area that this law affects. We should not be sleeping at this moment.
The PIB, for me, is the real answer to the questions that we have been asking about resource control or participation in the industry for Niger Delta people. So I believe that what we should do now is massive mobilization of all stakeholder units, PANDEF and all the organizations in charge or that have been articulating Niger Delta issues to make themselves available, because until our position is known, the law will not capture it. The lawmakers, if those who do not want us to succeed in that material particular are more, their views is what the law will carry. But if we make a presentation there, they have no option but to take exactly what we have presented.
In their determination to salvage the ailing petroleum industry, Nigeria's federal lawmakers have vowed that the proposed Petroleum Industry Act will be underway by the end of the first quarter of 2021. However, it is the considered opinion of most Niger Deltans that the anticipated law will not have served its purpose without addressing the fears and concerns of oil-producing communities that constitute the melting pot of Nigeria's petroleum industry.
Inside the Niger Delta,